This is a TPK. This is what TPK is.
Yeah.
I've never had a TPK.
Well, I mean, how old is this thing? I doubt that its microphone still works. Hello!
Yeah, it's supposed to be like party music. It's supposed to dance with it.
Party music. So you have to be like bum 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 ba da da bum 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 ba da da bum 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 da 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 da. Don't break.
Don't break it.
Hold on.
You lost your
I lost my mind a long time ago. You make a man make this many spoiler warnings, and eventually he just loses it.
Is that a spoiler warning?
Spoiler warning. Hello everybody, welcome to today's video where I have a script, but Lord knows we haven't followed it and I don't know what the heck is happening, so we can do a typical day here
This is our third take. In the first take, Jay tried to sing Jingle Bells.
I tried to sing Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree.
And we realized this wasn't going to be posted until after Christmas.
Christmas, yeah. So we cut that one and then we tried to record another one and we got to do like a 30-minute long discussion about relationships in life. Glad that we did that. And now we're recording the actual video in which I talk about the inevitability of death and mortality. So.
Gosh, wait, I should tell them about that edit that I saw on TikTok about how.
One of Shrek?
Yeah, the one with Shrek and Death from Puss in Boots.
Oh.
And how they made thirst traps of both of them, but they start with Death and they're like, how could he be in the same universe as him? And then it goes into Shrek, and it's thirst traps of Shrek.
If I find it, we'll put that on the screen now. Anyways, today we are talking about TPKs, otherwise known as Total Party Kills.
Yay, TPK!
Yay, TPKs! TPK is also the name of a band that makes really cool music about D&D, actually.
Total party kill. They shouldn't have flaunted. The heroes are haunted, 'cause they know that I got what I wanted, and it's a total party kill.
Total party kills are the concept of what happens when an entire party dies in a game of either D&D or just generally TTRPGs. They are an inevitability and yet something that everybody wants to avoid. And I've been thinking about this topic a lot because I thought it was absolutely fascinating. So let's talk about it. As the spoiler warning told you, I'm going to specifically mention things that happened in the Dimension 20 campaign, Never After, as well as campaign 1 of Candela Obscura, Critical Role, which I released a 2-hour-long video on. You watch that here. I'm pretty sure I've gotten it down. I'm pretty sure it's that corner right there. Those are the examples I'm going to use for TPKs today. But before I do that, let's talk about total party kills in general, what they mean, and we'll just discuss them. We're just going to discuss them, all right? Roll the notes. Roll the notes. Great. Total party kills. Why are they allowed? Why do they exist? What are they? Like I said, of course, it's the whole party dying, but that's not specifically what they totally are. Instead, I like to consider them as the full culmination of what consequences are in a TTRPG. See, in order to have a good story, you must have consequences, and anybody who has watched my channel for any amount of time knows that that's something that I say a lot. Consequences mean that whatever it is that you do is important. If you did something and it had no consequences, it wasn't important because it affected nothing. And TPKs are the ultimate culmination of that. Because when you look at them, what they mean is that at any time, your whole party could end up dead. The story could end prematurely. And there are a lot of people out there which would probably ask, why would you ever want that? Why would your GM ever allow a TPK? Because who wants an unsatisfying story to the narrative? Isn't that why we play these games? To have a satisfying and interesting narrative. So to have them end prematurely, abruptly, not actually in any ways satisfyingly, why would we allow that? Why is that something that you would look forward to? Why put that in your games? And I think that's a very interesting conversation, a very interesting thing to talk about in general. So let's jump into our 2 examples for this video. The first example that we're going to talk about today is Never After, Dimension 20's horror campaign. It's a campaign I watched recently and I absolutely loved it, but before we could fully get into exactly why I'm using it as an example, we need to talk about something that happens in that campaign, which is the emotional impact of a total party kill. What this means is that a story that people have invested in is over. Characters they've invested in are dead. The entire concept of a TPK means that everything came to an end, and inevitably that will have a strong emotional impact on the party and the table as a whole, because it's sad. Even if the TPK was inevitable, like if you had a campaign that had it planned, or it was something that was unexpected, regardless of how it happened, knowing a story comes to an end creates emotional impact, and having it do so abruptly or in such a fantastic manner is going to affect people. And this happens within the Never After campaign itself, because they didn't expect the TPK. Those of you who haven't seen the series, all you need to know is that it is the Dimension 20 horror campaign, like I mentioned earlier, based around fairy tales. The entire concept is that the concept of happily ever after has been corrupted within the world, and now they are living in the world of the never after, a place where happily ever afters can never exist, and where people's stories are written for themselves in horrific ways. The main cast typically is trying to just go through the basic adventure in the first few episodes. But very early on in the campaign, they encounter a scenario where they honestly just mess up a lot. They really do not handle this encounter well, and it leads to a horrible scenario where, yes, all the characters die in like episode 3 of the entire series.
God, are they gonna attack our dead bodies? You made a bunch of level 1 characters TPK'd, and now these are still anime and they're gonna attack our dead bodies.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Brennan, you're such
Maybe
a
they
big
just, like,
man.
go
Try
to
to do that
brunch.
when we're
Maybe they
level
just go to
15.
brunch, Brennan.
Which is, 1, a lot, because there's like 20 episodes in that entire thing, but 2, it ended the series. And this is a problem for a few different reasons. 1, they had all put so much effort into their characters, finding fairy tales they wanted to create main characters out of, building them in D&D, going up until that point, creating this story, only to have them go against the very corrupted fairy godmother and accidentally get themselves all killed is terrible in itself. The way that it happens is also awful. They recognize extremely early on in the battle that they're the ones that are causing this. They didn't handle the situation well. They jumped into the battle without really taking it seriously, and it leads to death after death after death after death until the point where only one character, Gerard, the Frog Prince, is left. And even he ends up dying.
Gerard, we are here to help you. It's not what you... And the light goes out as you pull into your own chest, stab yourself, and fall back as magic rushes into your suddenly unconscious body. The entire party is down.
Now, Brendan obviously tries to give him a chance to get out of this, but through bad dice rolls, I mean, what can you do as a GM? You gotta sit back, you gotta acknowledge that this is happening, and Brendan lets it happen. He describes as Gerard jumps up and attempts to pull a glass shard out of the fairy godmother, the thing that is causing this entire scenario to happen. He accidentally stabs himself with it, falls down, and Brennan gives every single character every chance to roll a natural 20 for their death saving throws. They roll dice after dice after dice after dice after dice.
12, success.
Okay.
A 10,
Oh, so close.
19, success. 7. Gerard,
This feels vaguely religious.
17, success.
Okay.
Come on, look at the Irish.
12, under success.
It's gonna be. I think is that the crit? It's got art on it. Is that a little cat?
It's the cat's butt. That's a nat 1.
Damn it!
No saving throw, no nat 20, nobody comes back up, TPK happens. Brennan was honestly as nice as a GM possibly could be in the scenario. He did everything he could to try and prevent this from happening, and it happened regardless. So what do they do about it? Well, Brennan outright acknowledges that he's gonna have to figure out what's gonna happen next.
Well, that is a total party kill.
Is it?
The first in Dimension 20 history.
And so the next episode, we find out what happened. Brennan does something that I think a lot of people would expect in this scenario. You don't let the story end You just let it change. And I do really love the way that Brennan handles this, because when everybody dies, he sits down every single person individually and describes how their character is brought back into the story in something he refers to as twice upon a time.
Lou, you want to come in and play some D&D?
You gonna kill me again? Because if you're gonna kill me again, I'll leave right now. You know, I don't like to die, Brendan. You can kill me as many times as you wanted before everyone came back.
No.
Oh, okay. Oh, we gonna do this again? You gonna switch it again? Some bitch.
The concept that when a character dies, they are rewritten into the story yet again, but now in a different, darker form. Because they are inevitably in a constant cycle of stories rewriting themselves, and they can't escape it. And suddenly, that's what the campaign becomes about. I don't really think that's what they were originally going to go with, but that's what the campaign becomes, is them attempting to find a way to escape this cycle of stories they're being written into rather than anything else. And that's interesting, that's fascinating, and it shows one way you can handle a TPK, changing the story. Making it not the end, but instead just a new step into the next stage of the story. But that's not what always ends up happening, and that's not always the option. Which then leads us into our second example, Candela Obscura, Vassal, and Veil.
Knowledge of what lies beyond the flare continues to be elusive. Glimmers of understanding lead us down branching paths with no discernible end. The mark of a strong investigator is to always question the status quo. An extraordinary investigator is one who's not afraid to question the nature that lies within them.
Candela Obscura, Vassal, and Veil is the premier campaign to show off Critical Role's new TTRPG. That's the main reason it exists, but it's also a really, really good campaign. Again, I made a 2-hour-long video on it, which you could check out if you want to, but that's not really the point of why I'm mentioning it. Why I'm mentioning it is it gets as close to a TPK as possible without fully stepping over that line. But it still shows how players, characters, and GMs react to that scenario. See, the entire campaign revolves around this group of individuals who are attempting to hunt down supernatural entities in order to protect the world around them. The final episode of the campaign involves them chasing down a creature which has the ability to steal people's faces and their identities. And I don't mean steal them as in like shapeshift into them. I mean literally steal their faces and leave just a blank slate where it used to be.
Heavier looking muscle-like figures nod and grab a third and push them towards the gate. The third figure suddenly screams and stumbles forward, falling onto their knees as they glance up. Ah! And scream loudly as something thrusts out from the shadow. You watch as a long extended limb, something looking like it's twisted from a mass of hair or root, just wraps around the head of this fallen goon. Long wisps of the hair-like shadow, just dangling and drifting from it. They struggle, but for a moment, before the limb lets loose and pulls away, revealing the smooth, featureless skin surface of the now faceless head. Unmoving.
And so, in this scenario, they eventually find where this creature was summoned through a portal, and they find the individual who actually summoned it, Lycus. Then a giant battle ensues in which a lot happens. One of the characters gets blasted across the face with shrapnel, leaving them permanently scarred. One of the characters is thrown against a wall and knocked unconscious. The demon is attempting to steal all their faces, and the man who summoned it in the first place ends up running away because one of the other characters, Ashley Johnson's, is shooting a gun at him.
Just as shards of obsidian end up piercing you multiple places across the side of your face, you take 2 body marks from your proximity to this. And then continually stumble, rolling on the ground, get back up, and you're just covered in blood on the left side of your face.
As I get up, I take out my gun, rolling, standing up, and then I put it on Lycus.
There's a lot that occurs. But slowly, one by one, each of the characters drops. One of them is knocked against the wall and is unconscious. Then one of them has their face stolen, then another face stolen, leaving only one character. Howard, played by Robbie Damon. And this character, who is one of my favorites, looks at the demon, and we get one of those usual scenarios you would expect when a TPK is occurring. All the players around the table are telling Robbie to run, to get out of there, because if he runs, the story doesn't end. There's a chance for a better ending.
If you run away, you can still come back and avenge and save us. You can still come back and save us.
This This is a clear sign of what most people are going to do when a TPK is occurring: the insistence on bargaining for a better ending, insisting that the story doesn't end there. It doesn't matter who died, as long as the story doesn't end, it's not the worst scenario. And I think this is a very good example and look into player psyches. I think it makes perfect sense that we wouldn't want a story to end there. We wouldn't want a story to end in the most tragic and horrible ways possible. We want the story that we've been telling with everybody at the table to continue, because if it ends unsatisfyingly, it might as well have not happened at all. So of course they're going to tell him to run. But the interesting thing is how Robbie reacts to this, what he chooses to do. He looks at everybody and says, "My character's not a coward," and he runs forward with just his fists and attempts to beat the demon to death.
Howard's no coward! I run directly at the beast, empty-handed. Just ball up that old farm boy fist and try to smush it through this body.
Obviously, that's not going to occur. However, what he does do is end up freeing one of the faces from this demon, which allows one of the other characters to act, and ultimately it leads to the culmination of, well, not a TPK, but I don't really want to spoil that campaign. I've already done so. I don't need to do it again. Point is, it ends in a very interesting, dramatically satisfying way. But this was the third episode of a campaign that was going to last 3 episodes. So if this had occurred, I truly believe Matt would have just let it occur. I mean, after all, it was a horror campaign. A TPK was something that was kind of thematically there. And I think that is something to take into account. Sometimes a total party kill is to be expected based off of the campaign. Candela Obscura was meant to always be an extremely dangerous scenario. So of course, a TPK might be inevitable. And Matt even outwardly says that he looked at it and thought a TPK was happening, and he still was moving forward with it.
No joke. I thought I was gonna end that shit in a real negative way. I was like, oh man!
I love this is a TPK. This is what TPK is.
Yeah.
I've never
was
had
like,
a TPK.
This is one
First
bleed
time
away.
everything. Wow.
Holy moly.
Now, he did give some allowances. He did give a little bit of a leeway to attempt to allow Howard to get them out of the situation as he did so. But I do think it's rather interesting that in both scenarios, both Never After and Candela Obscura, the GM tried so hard to give a chance to escape the TPK. Which leads me to an inevitable conclusion that I'm sure a lot of people are probably screaming at me right now. Both these campaigns are monetized. I mean, I don't mean to sound cynical, but it's true. Both Candela Obscura and Never After are monetized. They have stories that have been developed and created for the sake of creating content which is monetized. Which means you can't let the story end early. Especially in the case of Never After. Not only did it happen so early on in the campaign, Dimension 20 puts a massive amount of work into pre-production for their campaigns. They have set designs, they have music, they have editing, they have the characters created, they have art made. They put so much effort into that pre-production, so to have that end so early would be financially devastating, let's be real. So obviously they can't just let it end there. But what does that mean for home games? We don't all play in front of cameras. We don't all play for content. So what does it mean for people who are just sitting at home playing? Should we just let TPKs happen? Should we just let the campaign end suddenly? Should we just destroy everything that we've created? And you know, a lot of the times I ask these questions on my channel and I give an answer, which is yes and no. I'm sure it will be no surprise when I look at the camera and say yes and no.
Yes. No, not that big of a surprise.
You're not funny.
Hilarious.
Bitch, I'm adorable.
Bitch, I'm adorable.
You call me a bitch now?
Quoting something. Do you think you're being cute? Bitch, I'm adorable. Anyways, I gotta let the teleprompter scroll. I should have been letting it scroll. Like I said earlier, the ending unsatisfyingly coming isn't something that most people look forward to. But that being said, many players look forward to playing these games because of the chance of that happening. Consequences. Consequences are important. If you feel a consequence isn't going to come, why worry about the action in the first place? These games allow us to take actions and expect consequences. They expect us to try. because we want to know that we're overcoming something. When we play these games, we want to feel as if we're overcoming a challenge. But if the challenge has no consequence to failing, it wasn't a challenge at all, was it? This is why TPKs must exist. The idea that if you do things wrong, it could end with everybody dying. The story ending unsatisfyingly. The idea that you're overcoming the worst scenario. But that being said, nobody wants a TPK to happen, so should GMs even let them happen? I don't know. I'm not sitting at your table. I don't know what you guys like. I personally would never allow a TPK to happen without it being important. I would not let the story end there if the players were not satisfied. If at the end of a TPK, I looked across the table and said, what do you guys think? And everybody was okay with that ending, if they thought it was satisfying narratively, I would leave it. Because that's the point. That's the point of why we're playing. Because we all wanted to sit at a table and tell a story that we all enjoyed. We all wanted to spend time and know we created something together. And if somebody wasn't satisfied, the game would continue. But that doesn't mean there wouldn't be consequences. The consequences are important. I don't know what they would be, which is why I mentioned Never After earlier. Its consequence was the fact that each of the characters had to go through some harsh traumatic experiences and come out changed. Their characters were not the same as before. That's a good consequence. With that being said, it's not always what you expect. Because I would like to return to something I said at the beginning of the video. Why would you play a game that could end unsatisfyingly? Why would you allow that to happen? And obviously I just mentioned consequences, so that is a portion of it. But it's also because without an ending, it doesn't matter. The truth is, memories are something that we very, very much cherish, as we should, because a memory only happens once, and we get to revisit it time and time and time again because we know that memory happened once. You don't get to go back to that. That's the importance of an ending. And so, why play a game that could end unsatisfyingly? Because if it didn't have an end, it wouldn't be worth playing. Because there would be no reason to review memories, because memories will keep happening and keep occurring. A new memory will always come, so why reflect on the old ones? And so too is true in our lives. It's honestly really difficult to mention, and yes, we've entered the portion of the video where Jay takes something that was honestly very objectively silly, TTRPGs, and makes it existentially terrifying, but life ends. Life ends suddenly. It ends without expectation, it ends without a promise of a satisfying ending. So does that mean that living a life is not worth it? No. No, it doesn't. And that is a horrifying concept to come to, that it doesn't make it not worth living because we get to experience those memories once. We get to make those memories. If we lived forever, everything we did would eventually fade away. Memories and endings are important. And so when we look at the endings to our stories, we have to understand that they have to be there. It has to come to an end. It will be sad, it will be tragic, and we will look back on it and wish we could always return to those memories, but the truth is we can, and the only reason we do is because it came to an end in the first place. It's difficult to realize, but an ending is what makes something beautiful in the first place. An ending brings closure and a desire to always remember it. It brings immortality, strangely enough, because with an ending, we always want to know and remember, and so we never forget. So, with that weirdly existential rant out of the way, yes, of course we're going to play a game where it could end unsatisfyingly because we know we want it to end eventually so that we can remember it. That is the purpose of playing these games. That is the purpose of living life. And I wouldn't want it any other way. It hurts sometimes, but I think that's the point. Because within that pain, we remember that we loved something, that we enjoyed it, and that's why it's painful. Two sides of the coin that remind us why we live and why we experience life. And I think that's really, really beautiful. So that was more difficult to get through than I expected. So go enjoy your games. Enjoy your memories, knowing that they'll come to an end, but that's the point, and that's what makes them beautiful. And try not to get into a TPK, because...
Or do, because it could be fun.
Or do, it could be fun. If you've ever been in a TPK, you are now legally obligated to subscribe to the channel. You have to.
That came out of nowhere.
There's no other choice. I gotta do the YouTube thing.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Uh-huh.
You've only ever killed one player.
I have only ever killed one player.
And it was mine.
That's true. Actually, I've killed many player characters. Oh yeah, we have to do the meme. Did you kill a player or a player character? I've killed many player characters. I've only ever permanently killed one player character. You know what? This is a mess. Like, comment, subscribe.
Right, bye, y'all. Guys, I forgot to show you a fish.
She didn't show any fish today, so we re-mic'd me and turned on one of the lights just so we could show the fish. It's a puffer fish. Oh, let's go. Oh my God, look at him. He's so hungry.